I've seen a lot of lawyers pull out all children with their parents in their hands. I felt a lot of women refuse to understand. Well, I don't think I understand why we're making such a fuss. And I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand how we take the world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. I see it in the papers, read it every day. The riots and the fire. We want to make the same thing. We take for your money. I will never let us spring. And I don't think I understand why we're making such a fuss. And I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand why we take this world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. Take me. Making such a fuss, and I don't think I understand what's come of all of us. And I don't think I understand why we take this world for granted. I just want to get right back to Guitar Players Planet. 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 Guitar Players Planet.
Down by the water, maybe I'm the sun, maybe I'm a daughter when the music man calls. That's when I gotta play. So I burn for the things I never had. I'm burning with hate, with love. Spin around. 'Cause as a boy I had a dream. Carry it with me today. Yes, I do.
Sunny skies, the smell of palm tree air. Looking back, I could never feel fair. The way the music has touched my soul, the way that the South holds its control. But I've got a new way to choose. I'm gonna start running back to the lands of the new. Oh, na 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 na. I have lost my friend. Got the sunset off the highway again. Then I get lost on a long summer day. I must go back before it's too late. You're afraid, you're feeling alone. Time and space can never afford. The holidays can ring in your fear. The ghost embrace can only mean tears. And I've got a new way to choose. I'm gonna start running back for lands of blue. Oh, na 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 na. At the lake, I'm feeling confused, but I had my guitar, so I played this blues. But I'm afraid, the war might be true, that I might never be back again.
Someone to take me down at night. Someone to make my day. New revelation fills my soul. Oh, I can waste away. You distracting my attention. You're all that's on my mind. You not looking for perfection, but you're too hard to find. Now the first night is coming, and I know what to do. You know that nothing feels sweeter than someone else. Hey, yeah, yeah. Where did my color go? Got your head in the sand. You can't be in control, using a powerful hand. I wanna be ya, I wanna see ya. Don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to tell me, don't try to say it's too late. You're gonna push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, hide a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue, yeah. All right. Yeah. Cat learns to ring a bell. Rat gets free from the maze. We can be taught to love. We've got to learn a new way. I wanna see, I wanna be. Don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to sell me, don't try to say it's too late. Yeah, you're gonna push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shadows. Push me to the edge, add a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue. Yeah, 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 I wanna be, I wanna see, don't taste the kisses of hate. Don't try to tell me, don't try to sell me, don't try to say it's too late, late, late. Push me to the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, add a little color, it's black and white and blue. Yeah, black and white and blue. You're gonna black and white on the edge, back me in a corner, making me stand in your shoes. Push me to the edge, add a little color, it's black and white and blue. Black and white and blue. Sunny skies, the smell of palm tree air. Looking back, I could never feel fair. The way the music has touched my soul, the way that the South holds its control. But I've got a new way to choose. I'm gonna start running back to the land of the new. Oh, na 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 na. I have lost my friend. Catch the sunset on the highway again. Then I get lost on a long summer day.
And I've got nowhere to choose. I'm gonna start running back for lands of blue. Oh, na 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 na. Sitting at the lake, I'm feeling confused, but I had my guitar, so I played this blues. But I'm afraid, what might be true, that I might never be back again. Seems to me that I have lost my way. Got the sunset off the highway again. Then I get lost all alone summer day. I must be back before it's too late. Before it's too late. What have I done? Ooh, what have you seen? Early at night, got in the fight, in the candlelight, looking through the screen. Now what have I done? What have you seen? You know there's no future in love when a person has come in between. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Can't look back and now he feels so strong. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Left last night and now it's been so long. What have I done? What have you seen? There was nothing to say, took her away, and I feel the pain, made love in vain. Oh, 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 what have I done? What have you seen? She knows there's no future in love when a person has come in between. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Can't look back and now he feels so strong. Jamie's gone, Jamie's gone. Left last night and now it seems so long. Ooh. Ooh. You can hear these words I say when you're a million miles away. Yeah.
We're here again. We are recovering from the Astropalooza hangover, just like the rest of everybody. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 216th episode of Astropalooza. AstroWorld. Gotta keep on saying. I'm so used to say AstroWorld. We're not doing that anymore. But tonight we're here with Craig Stocks, and I have a bone to pick with you, Pete. I got a bone to pick with you. And you know what? Nobody else even told me about this. I guess I went back to the first time that Craig was on the show, and I almost used the ad that we have on the show for the last one. For this one, just change the date, right? So Craig's last name has been misspelled for a year. Instead of Craig Stocks, it said Craig Starks, and nobody told me any different. And I'm sitting, and then I just went to the website for Utah Desert to get some information on some stuff, and oh man, it's Stocks, not Starks. So Craig, I apologize about that. That was my bad, but
I never even noticed.
I know it's only on the AstroWorld community stuff, but it was on the website and everything. I was like, yeah, everyone's like, you're the cousin of Tony. You're gonna come out with an Iron Man, jersey coming on. but welcome to the show, Craig. But before we get started, we just got to do a thank you to all the sponsors because it gave us so much stuff this year, so much to be grateful for. Let's do that really quick because people see this all the time, and we'll do the quick play on that. And okay, so we gave a lot of money away from Woodland Hills and Cameron Telescopes, and we're going to be giving another gift certificate away this Friday. So if you're not registered for any of the giveaways and you're new to the show, welcome to the show. I hope you were able to see the 8-9 hour show last Saturday. And if you haven't, I'm putting them out one section at a time every night at 8:30. So you're able to kind of check it out. Woodland Hills, Cameron Telescopes give us gift certificates that we give away every week or almost every other week. So thank you to them. Red Giant Level, Prima Luce Lab gave us the nice Eagle 4 Pro that we gave away on in 4th of July area. So thank you to them. Camera Concepts and Optolong, who gave us our second set of SHO 3nm filters that we just gave away again to a lucky winner, and I think it was in Arizona, but that just went out today in the original. So when you see the box, it's the original box that I got it in. It has Chinese writing all over it, so it's kind of pretty cool. So that box came directly from China. And then a Super Giant Level, Masters of Pix Insight and IP for AP, a whole bunch of classes and free yearly subscriptions from them. We must have given away probably $3,000 or $4,000 worth of classes this year from them, and they've been awesome. So thank you so much to them for sponsoring us. And don't forget all of our member sponsors, which I have to update. I haven't updated some of the other slides in a while, but I have to update them again because we're getting plenty more going through. And these are all different levels. So if you want to become somebody that's on here, you could be on our Patreon or our YouTube members. You both get on here. Hoping that everybody moves over to Patreon eventually because it's just easier to track. I just want to have everything on one kind of platform. But either way, feel free to join us on either Patreon or on our YouTube site. So we have a whole bunch of sponsors. So thank you so much to everybody. Astropalooza, just some stats for the people that actually care about them. Astropalooza was a success on Saturday. 164 peak concurrent viewers, 1,600 views, 14 guests, almost 9 hours long, tons of giveaway. And with the exception of the one person that said no on the poll that we put up there, 97 people said they want to see Astropalooza
next year, and one person didn't. I want to see who that person is. So unfortunately I can't find out. It's an anonymous poll, but so there we go. Tonight, and another mistake on Craig's slide. It's not 8 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. So for those of you that were an hour early, there you go. So Craig's here tonight from Utah Desert Remote Observatories. Going to talk a lot to Craig about what's going on over there with some new equipment. It's going to be a lot of fun. January 4th, we have Don Goldman from Astrodon is going to come on and hang out with us and talk about his filters and what he does and how he takes care of them and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to be great. January 11th, we have Eric's the 501c3 organization, RFT Stars, that Carlos Aragon runs, and Carlos is going to be on talking to us about what he does and how he uses astronomy to help anxiety and other learning deficiencies in children. So it's very interesting. If you haven't seen what it's all about, go to rftstars.com. This is going to be a fundraiser, everybody. So we're doing a fundraiser for them, just like we did for the Lima Astronomical Society when they got their observatory broken into. So it's going to be the same thing. So it's another fundraiser. And thank you so much. And if you like what we do, please hit that like button. Join us on any of our other social media platforms: Discord, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So thank you so much to everybody. And that being said, we're going to go back to the 4UP, and we are back live on the TV show. And thank you so much for everybody and their support. And we are here again with Craig Stocks from Utah Desert Remote Observatory. How you doing, Craig? What's going on?
I'm doing great.
Welcome again. You're a two-timer now.
I am.
So welcome again to the show, and we're looking forward to. Are you going to NEAF this year?
Don't know.
Oh,
I haven't planned that far ahead.
Yeah, well, now, do you live in Utah, or do you?
Yes.
You do live in Utah. Okay, so
yep.
So I mean that's a little bit of a hike for you, but you know what? It's the first time in 3 years. You got to go, because you know what? AstroWorld's got a table at NEAF. So
okay.
So we're me and Pete are going to be hanging out with whoever else decides to come out. So you got to come and hang out. So feel free.
Okay.
But anyway, welcome to the show, and why don't you introduce yourself to the people that don't know about Utah Desert Remote, don't know you, and what's going on over there. So go right ahead.
Okay. Well, the discussion will probably talk a fair amount about that. But obviously, I'm Craig. We moved to Utah from Central Illinois about 4 years ago, and we found this kind of a golden opportunity living out here in the desert with nearby dark skies to set up a remote observatory operation. And that also dovetailed real nicely, not only with the skills that we have in the family, as far as my son, daughter, son-in-law, wife, and so forth, but they also, our kids who are in their 40s, were looking for something a little unorthodox, off the grid, not just a regular 9-to-5 job. So the idea of having a remote observatory business that they could basically run on a day-to-day basis really kind of gelled with us about 1.5 years ago, maybe getting close to 2 years now. We thought about, well, maybe a dark sky campground, and we started looking into that. And the more we looked at it and talked about it, the more we realized that was probably a bad idea. Problem with campgrounds is you have to deal with campers.
Yep.
So as we were exploring that, the remote observatory idea popped up, and that just really grabbed a hold with us.
Nice. That's all, and for those of you that don't know, Craig actually has a picture of the week winner in our thing. I believe it was the Spaghetti Nebula, if I remember right.
I don't recall, to be real honest.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
it
was back. It was back probably in, I think, May or June or something like that. It was about 6 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
But yeah. So, Charity said, "Are you still hiring security?" She's looking for a job still.
Well, don't forget about us just in case.
But hey,
We-
hey, you know, Charity's a longtime watcher of the show. She's in the chat now. I remember the last time that you were on, she actually mentioned this. You need a security person.
Yeah, there were several people kind of angling for that job as a caretaker.
Yep.
Because our daughter and son-in-law actually live on the property, so they live about maybe a quarter mile away from the observatory.
That's not bad. Yeah, you know, I remember us talking about now. Do they like take shifts and like you watching this night, I'm watching the next night, or
For the most part, they watch it. Just before the show, I got a text alert from the roof control system that it wasn't getting weather updates, and it doesn't like not having weather updates. And within about 30 seconds, I also got a text and a phone call from my daughter saying, "Hey, did you see that?" So
yeah.
It appears to be a false alarm. Everything is working fine.
Oh well, that's good.
There's at least a couple of us imaging tonight in the observatory. So I've got a system out there that's working its little heart out while I'm here, playing around on the computer. And I know at least one of our customers has his telescope up tonight.
So how many scopes do you have there now?
We've got, we're just getting started. We've got a couple of test telescopes running. We've got one customer installed who is doing mostly exoplanet transits. And we've got another telescope that was supposed to be shipped from California. I haven't heard confirmation, but I expect it to ship this week.
Nice.
And that should be coming then in the next week or two. And that'll be a 24-inch plane wave on a L600 mount.
Out there said, "Is that Antoine's scope?"
He does have one there, yes. That's not his 24-inch.
Yeah, it's Dylan is a longtime watcher. Handles Bloodstone out there. So let's see. So I mean, Utah Desert Remote. So how many nights a year do you get out there?
I've been running around 80%, I guess, on average, imaging about 80% of the nights. Now, some of those are partial nights that, you may have a cloud drift through in the middle of the night, or have a slow start, or, something that closes the observatory at 3 a.m. or something. But in October, I think I imaged all but one night.
Oh my God.
I take it back. November, I imaged all but one night.
I wish. New York is just a disaster with that. It's like imaging in the UK. It's like it's just horrible.
So, and our usual weather pattern is it'll be windy and maybe high clouds in the afternoon, and almost always, if you look at the weather system, the wind dies down as the sun goes down, and the clouds just kind of evaporate, and then it'll be clear all night. And during the summer, during the monsoon season, sometimes it takes until a little bit after sunset before the clouds really dissipate. But I think the worst months I've been imaging around 50 to 60% of the nights. So it varies with the month.
Yeah, no, because it's interesting because I mean, Dylan's out there saying, "Hey, Arizona is great." I said, Dylan, if I moved to Arizona and lived near you, we would get no observing or imaging done because we'd be drinking. And so Eric has joined us tonight. Eric just got home, so welcome, Eric.
Hey, how are you guys?
All right, Chibata, yes. Okay. Actually, what's his name? One of our members lent me his 2600 MC when I went to Cherry Springs back in June. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm not doing anything. I'm not. Just hold on to it. I think he lives locally, so I know him. And I would just text me, "You gonna be at the store tomorrow? Or, can you bring my 2600?" This is like I've had it for 6 months. So I was like, so I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Yeah, it'll be there. It'll be there, Shibata, no problem." But yeah, it got a lot of good images with that. We did the Ghost of Cassiopeia. I got my M106 with that. A couple other things. So it's a lot of fun. That camera. I got to get my own eventually.
Yes, that's a goal for me too.
Yeah,
I gotta get one.
I got my QHY 268, which I like. So I'm just waiting for my scope to come back. My Esprit has been sent in to take a look at some odd things that I've been finding. Stars that look like Saturn, So either some optical problem or something. So I sent it into Dean over at Starzona to get a look at.
Nice.
What's going on, Eric?
Craig, it's nice to see you.
Oh, thank you. Always good to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
No, I was hearing a little bit before I hopped, before Dan brought me in from the green room. Yeah, I'm a little jealous myself as far as your clear nights. It's
most people are.
Yeah, for sure. I think someone asked, "What's
Dylan
the
had a question
cost?
about cost."
Yes.
Cost of a spot in Desert Remote.
Yes.
It's $800 a month.
Okay.
So it's not cheap. That if you look at the amount of infrastructure that it takes to put up an observatory, the observatory is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure, as well as the maintenance of having someone there, on site to be available to take care of things. So I know we talked about that at one point with the last time you were here. So yeah, there's quite a bit of there's more than just setting up an observatory and setting up your scope. There's a lot more to it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if I had a chance to ask you this. Since you've been imaging, since you have a lot of opportunities to image there in Utah, what has been your favorite target for now that we're closing out 2022? What was your favorite target or project for this year?
That's a tough question because I always tend to like my latest image the best. And then after a week, I kind of lose interest in it and I'm ready to move on to the next one.
Sure.
So probably a recent one that I've enjoyed working with has been the tadpoles.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I did a 12-panel mosaic of the Orion region with the Takahashi FSQ 106. So it covers all the way out to Bernard's Loop.
Nice.
And that was a fun project, and kind of sorting out how to assemble the mosaic that was imaged with a color camera. So I had just plain RGB, and then I also had dual narrowband data that was mostly rich in hydrogen.
Sure.
Trying to assemble a 12-panel mosaic and have those all stack and a starless workflow was an interesting exercise in figuring out how to do it.
Yes.
Is it a finished product? Can you share that with us?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me figure out the best way to do this. I'm just going to go into Lightroom.
You can see in the vMix, in the beta call, you should see a little red TV where you could toggle the screen share. There you go.
So now you should see my screen instead of me.
Yep, we do.
Since I'm on this screen, that's the
wow,
my latest iteration of the tadpoles. And
wow,
very nice.
And what is that done with?
That was with the plane wave, the 12.5 inch, and the ASI 6200 monochrome. So I basically reprocessed the masters with Blur Exterminator, just playing with that, and
Sure.
it definitely cleaned it up.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Yes, myself. I was just reading on that from Russell's email I got from him.
Yep, Russell's, Craig, Masters of Pix Insight, Adam Block, and about 5 or 6 other members from the Discord channel. I mean, it's
so.
Dylan's asking about your first thoughts about Blur Exterminator.
It's great. That, like I mentioned, I had been somewhat deconvolution averse. I started looking at the instructions in Pix Insight, and after about 5 minutes, my eyes glazed over, and thought, well, I guess I just won't use it. And so that's the way I processed my images. I would occasionally take images to IMPPG and do their flavor of deconvolution on the subs before I do all my combination and color mapping and so forth in Photoshop. So I would make a quick pit stop in IMPPG between Pix Insight and Photoshop. But now I don't have to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Click a button, wait 30 seconds, and I'm good to go.
Pretty soon we're going to be able to process like 20 hours of photos in like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
3 clicks. That's all it's going to take. It's going to be Russ Croman's like super pixel processing. That's what it's going to be called. And it's going to be 1 click. It does everything. It does DBE, stacking. It'll do everything up to the curve. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then we just need to build that into WBPP, so you can have the Blur Exterminator as one of the options in there. That I did do some experimenting with running the lights through Blur Exterminator before combining them, compared to processing them into a master and then running Blur Exterminator on that.
Okay.
And both approaches work. With mono data, it doesn't like color data until it's been demosaicked.
Got it.
So if you want to do it with a one-shot color, it's a little bit more of a workaround. You have to get at least to the registered data, and then run Blur Exterminator on those, and then do the integration.
Sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Good to know.
But with mono data, you can just drop those images in a container, and run Blur Exterminator on each one of the subs individually while you go get a cup of coffee.
That's awesome.
I would say it worked a little bit differently than running it on the combined master. It didn't appear, the couple times I tried it, it didn't appear enough better that I was going to adopt that as my normal workflow. So I'm still doing all of the calibration and integration, and then running Blur Exterminator either after I do a channel combination to get an RGB image, or on the monochrome subs. Typically, I'll just do a quick DBE color calibration on RGB data, and then Blur Exterminator.
Got it. Cool.
Now,
here's the big mosaic that we talked about.
Yep.
Yes. With this, for example, your this is really cool. I mean, and this was shot with your 102, with your TAC 102, 106,
106, yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
it's what's that? 530 millimeter focal length.
On your frames with this, being in these dark skies, what do you usually see as far as with broadband and narrowband? Just as a rough idea, I know every target is quite different, but usually what do you see as far as a pretty steady exposure rate, as far as exposure time, if you're doing RGB or narrowband in those types of dark skies? On
RGB, if I'm shooting RGB for nebula, like on Orion or something, I'll usually use a 5-minute sub.
Sure.
If I'm shooting RGB primarily for stars, I usually use a 2-minute sub.
Okay.
And then with narrowband, I'm usually using a 10-minute sub.
Nice. Okay.
So just there's zooming in on Orion, and there's the full image. And I think this is actually kind of a reduced half size, because the native image was too big for Lightroom to be able to handle it.
Okay, gotcha.
So
yeah.
So this is actually kind of a half resolution.
Gotcha. So how did you
Craig,
integrate the mosaic? What did you use to integrate it?
I hate to admit it, but I just used the Photoshop merge to mosaic.
Okay.
And I try to, normally I assemble them by hand. And I haven't had real good luck using Photoshop to do the photo merge, but with 12 panels times 2, it was a little tedious.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, I was approaching this as a starless workflow. So, when I get to a certain point, I wanted to have a starless layer of the hydrogen from the dual narrowband filter, a layer of RGB color that I could blend with that selectively, also starless, and then a layer of stars. And of course, all that has to be registered. So that was the challenge of figuring out how to keep all of that in registration. And what I wound up doing was I processed each one of the 12 frames through PixInsight, and I just did a screen stretch and saved that as actually an 8-bit TIFF. So I did that 12 times. So I had 24 TIFF files with just a simple screen stretch, and loaded those into Photoshop and told Photoshop to align all those layers. And then it amazingly not only aligned each layer, it aligned the layers to each other.
Oh, nice.
So
wow.
So in this case, it actually did all the magic for me. And then I was able to just, I selected the RGB group and blended those. Again, just told Photoshop to blend them, and then selected the narrowband group and had Photoshop blend those, and saved 2 huge TIFF files of the, one of the RGB, one of the dual narrowband, and then went back into PixInsight to do the star removal and noise reduction, things like that.
Nice.
Mike G wanted to know, do you even have to bother with DBE out at Utah?
Not so much when the moon's not up, but you get a lot of nights when you have at least some moonlight. So like tonight, I'm going to be shooting some before the moon comes up and some after. So I will still use DBE just for the moon gradient.
Got it. But other than that, what's your Bortle sky over in Utah?
It varies from a 3 to a 1.
Okay.
Still great.
Our best reading, I think, was 22.04.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's a little better than Cherry Springs.
So yeah, we don't get it that dark every night, but it varies just depending on the weather.
That's amazing, because I think I broke a record on Long Island for my SQM reading. I hit 17.8 and I was happy. It's so bad here. It's so bad. That's why I just do narrowband. That's why I do narrowband, or I do like 30-second subs for color. That's it.
Yeah.
It's so bad. And if you want to, Craig, if you want to switch off that screen, you just got to hit that red TV again to see you.
I do have some
nice.
I do have some material if you want to kind of
absolutely
walk through it and talk about it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And I'll make you big on the screen here. There you go.
Okay. Am I big now?
You're big.
Okay. This is, and actually some of this material is on our YouTube channel for Utah Desert Remote Observatories. So if either of the people who have watched it on YouTube are in the group tonight, I apologize to you. There may be some repetition, but it occurred to me that remote imaging has a lot of opportunities that I think people don't immediately take advantage of. You know, there's the obvious, if you're remote in you know, someplace out of town under a dark sky, you know, having a darker sky, more clear nights, you know, that's fairly obvious as an advantage. The other advantage, which I think is, you know, almost as significant, is that it really separates you from the telescope. So right now I'm talking on AstroWorld, but my telescope is imaging for me, and it's going to, you know, change filters, move from target to target, focus, and so forth. And I don't have to be there in person babysitting it. So that, and the fact that I don't have to set it up every night, the roof just opens and all I have to do is start the sequence. Those things open up a lot more imaging nights and imaging time for me. So dark sky and a lot more opportunity to image. And I mean, it's not for everybody. I get that. Invariably, somebody will say, "Well, yeah, but you know, for me, sitting under the stars next to my telescope, that's what astronomy is all about." And that's fine. That's, everybody approaches their hobbies in a different way. But there are some people that it does make a difference. It's a good solution if you have poor sky conditions at home. Or maybe you have other time commitments. Maybe you work a second shift or a third shift job, or travel frequently for your job, and you just can't carry a telescope and all the equipment with you. So in those situations, remote imaging is really a great solution. And remote can be in your own backyard. It doesn't have to be 1,000 miles away. And as I did mention, it is expensive, you know, several $100s a month and up, depending on where you're hosted. So you know, I recognize it's not for everybody. The typical architecture is pretty straightforward. We obviously have a telescope out somewhere, and that telescope has a remote PC or a computer that's controlling it, and it's controlling it just as if you were sitting next to it. But at home, you have your home computer, and through the magic of the internet, you're able to connect from the remote computer to your home computer. And basically your home computer becomes the monitor and keyboard and mouse for controlling that remote computer. So that's kind of the fundamentals of how remote works. And as I say, it could be in your backyard or 1,000 miles away. You really just need a secure site with reliable power and high-speed internet. Finding all those things can be a challenge. Dark sites and high-speed internet don't usually go hand in hand. So, you know, that's a challenge. And then also having, you know, somebody with access to the site if you have a problem. So, you know, kind of the basic equipment, and I'm not really the expert to talk about much of this. So, you know, if you guys want to pipe in with any comments, feel free. But, you know, the basic equipment is the optical tube, camera, computer mount, focuser, filter wheel, and a rotator is kind of optional, although it's sure nice to have. So I would say for the OTA, pretty much anything will work as long as it will accept an autofocuser. And I know some systems are very difficult to retrofit for an autofocuser, but if you can put an autofocuser on it, then you could probably use it for remote. And the same is true with cameras, other than I would say a DSLR is probably not appropriate. There's just too many power management issues. And obviously a cooled camera is going to work better than a non-cooled camera, but nothing really special about the camera other than I think it should be an astronomy dedicated camera. You do need a computer. I think most people are using some version of a Windows PC, either an Eagle or a Nook or a laptop with the lid closed. But an ASI Air really isn't designed for remote use. It's designed for, arm's length, maybe in the other room, or it's in the backyard and you're in the family room kind of use. But it's really designed assuming that somebody's going to be there to turn it on and off and do things with it. And it just isn't quite there for true remote use. The mount's probably the most important piece of equipment. Not all mounts are really suitable for remote use. And I would say the thing that you want to look for at a minimum is, does it have a homing function so that you can reset that mount remotely, either turn it off and back on, or it loses power and you have to turn it back on. Or if you just feel like it's acting funny and you want to reset things, having a homing function so that it can go to some predefined spot on its own, or have absolute encoders, so it always knows where it's at and doesn't have to be manually put back into some home position before it can operate. So that's probably the biggest thing to look for in a mount. I mentioned the focuser earlier. Obviously, you need to be able to focus from a distance. Filter wheel, you're not going to be there to change filters with a filter drawer, so having a filter wheel is almost a necessity. I wound up putting a little filter wheel on my color camera too, so I have just a UV filter and then a L enhance, and I do have 3 narrowband filters in there in case I just feel wild and crazy and want to use them. But for the most part, I use either the UV filter or the L enhance. And I found I couldn't just leave a blank spot because there was too much focus difference between a blank and the L enhance. I had to have some piece of glass in there to keep it, somewhat parfocal. Otherwise, it would focus through the blank spot, and then it couldn't focus through the L enhance, or vice versa. Camera rotator is a real nice thing to have. Lets you optimally frame your targets so that you're not only defining where you want to shoot, but also how you want the camera oriented. Bear in mind, it does complicate flat frames because typically your flat frames will need to match your rotation angle. I'm probably pretty fortunate with my 2 systems. They're symmetrical enough that I can pretty much use any flats with any orientation. But I'm pretty sloppy with flats just in general. Another nice to have is some sort of a flip flat. You can use it as a flats panel, and it also does double duty as a dust cover. But I always set the park position on my scope so they're pointed, kind of down towards the floor. At a minimum, you don't want it pointed where the sun could shine in. So if the cover's open during the day for maintenance or for some reason, you don't want to inadvertently have your scope pointed at the sun. There is some additional equipment that we recommend. The first one is a remote power switch. The most commonly used one, I think, is the one made by Digital Loggers. I've seen it called a Web Power Switch Pro Switch, Web Switch. It seems to have a lot of different names. It's basically an outlet strip that will connect to your local area network, and then you can individually turn 8 of those 10 outlets on and off remotely. So for instance, if my mount needs to be reset, or if I want to turn things off during the day, I can just go in through the computer and select which outlets I want to turn off.
That's awesome.
And those are about $200, and lately they've been in short supply. Another handy gizmo is just a simple unmanaged Ethernet switch. You can get these for like $20 or something. It's basically a splitter for Ethernet, and you may very likely get into a situation where you want to split the Ethernet that comes to your peer and have one Ethernet feed go to your computer and one go to the power switch. And you may have cameras or other things that can use Ethernet. So if you have more than one Ethernet need, then a little unmanaged switch is handy to have. And then lastly, a little UPS battery backup. And again, this is kind of optional. We do have a backup generator, but it's not uninterruptible. There will be like a 15 to 30-second delay if the power goes out before the generator comes up to speed. So, something that would keep everything running until the generator's up. If you want to do things yourself, here's a list of other things that you would consider. That, first you need a concrete foundation for your telescope. And ours is maybe overkill. We've got about 8,000 pounds of concrete under each telescope. And then you need a physical observatory enclosure, reliable power. As I mentioned, we've got an automatic backup generator, high-speed internet, and you'll need pretty high bandwidth because you're going to be uploading, downloading big files. A control computer to control the observatory itself. A local area network for shared data, for instance, between the weather system. The physical device to open and close the roof, and then a logical device, a roof controller, hardware and software that can control that roof opener and decide when to open, when to close. Ideally, you'd like that integrated with a weather monitor so that if clouds move in, the winds pick up, it starts to rain, humidity goes up, whatever, there's parameters set that will automatically close the roof. And we actually have a redundant weather monitor, so we have a primary and a backup. Equipment monitoring cameras, you find out pretty quickly it's nice to be able to take a peek at your camera, or your computer, your telescope, just so you can see, it's not acting right. Where's it actually pointed right now? An all-sky camera is nice just to see, are there clouds, are there stars, what's happening in the sky. We have a sky quality meter which measures the darkness. We were just talking about the Bortle scale. That's kind of a nice to have. You don't really need to know that because it doesn't change that much from night to night. A seeing monitor is a nice tool because it can give you a numeric number for seeing, and you can kind of compare that to other nights. So for instance, if your guiding is real bad one night, you can check the seeing monitor and see, is it something with your system or is it just a particularly bad night? And then obviously, like I mentioned, some hands-on support to have somebody who can, go out and put hands on it, swap a cable, push a button, turn a knob, those kinds of things that invariably are going to need to be done. And that list of things is why a lot of people wind up going to a remote site like Utah Desert Remote Observatories, and there are lots of others too. We're certainly not the only one. In terms of the software architecture, just to expand on that a little bit, I mentioned earlier that the remote PC connects to your home computer over the internet. The way that actually works, if we look at the remote PC first, that's configured pretty much like any other computer that you would use for imaging. That you've got, potentially a mount controller program, a camera controller, a filter wheel, an auto guider, focuser, rotator, flip flap, all those different pieces. And typically you have a layer of ASCOM platform that ties some or all of those together and gives a common interface. The next step on top of that is some sort of kind of integration or session manager software, so that the session manager then is working typically through ASCOM to control all those different pieces and put them together into a cohesive session for what target am I imaging, how many types of images, what filter, what length, how often do I need to refocus, how do I want the camera rotated. All of that stuff is controlled in the session manager. Sequence Generator Pro is one of the kind of the old standby, I guess. Nina is real popular now. Personally, I use Voyager as my session manager. And then for each one of the pieces, I'm using the SkyX to control the mount. The Voyager is talking to the ASI camera driver, since I'm using ASI cameras. The filter wheel is a ZWO filter wheel, but it's an ASCOM device. I've been using PhD2 for guiding rather than using the SkyX, and for whatever reason, I feel like I get better results. I don't know if I really do, but I feel like I do. Maybe it's just the allure of multi-star guiding. Focuser, I've got, those are pretty much ASCOM devices. Rotator, again, is ASCOM. And then the flip flat kind of has its own driver. And Voyager connects to all of those things and can open and close the flat, turn the rotator, focus the camera, pass control to PhD2, and so forth. The last piece then is to put some sort of a remote desktop application on the remote computer. I use Google Remote Desktop, and I've been very happy with it. I mean, it basically just always works. And it works from my computer, from my phone, from my tablet, anywhere I've been. If I can connect to the internet, I can connect to the observatory. So I've been real happy with Google Remote Desktop. And then on your home computer, what you have there is the corresponding Google Remote Desktop, and you need to be logged into Google on both places. I will say the only hitch I've had with Google Remote is occasionally, for whatever reason, I will get logged out of Google on the remote computer. And then there's no way to connect to log back into Google, because you need to be logged into Google in order to connect. So, when something like that happens, again, you need someone on site who can go put a keyboard on the computer and get you logged back in. But with the remote desktop application on your home computer, through the magic of the internet, that will connect to the remote computer, and then you're off to the races. The last piece is moving files back and forth. The remote PC has a shared Dropbox folder. And again, just automatically, as those files are created on the remote computer, that Dropbox shared folder gets shared with my home computer. So, quite literally, when I get up in the morning, I've got a hard drive with fresh files on it that were captured last night. So I do most of my work in my sleep.
Amazing. Gotta love it.
Gotta love that stuff.
So that's kind of at a very high level, kind of the nuts and bolts of how I've been making remote imaging work. And I think that's kind of the standard formula. And I did it the same way when it was in my backyard as I do now that it's at an observatory 60 miles away.
Fantastic.
So the next part of this is all about building the observatory, but it's probably a good place to stop and chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So there was a couple of questions out there. I guess the first one that was asked multiple times. So for $800, if someone were out to go take you up on your offer and put their scope of that, what did it get for the 800 besides a pad and the overlords that are watching the area?
Well, you get obviously access to the sky.
Right.
The main thing you get is you get a solid foundation to attach a pier. If you need a pier, we can manufacture those, and that is of course an extra cost.
Sure.
The piers are $400 plus $150 per foot of height, and that's a 10-inch diameter steel pier with a paramount top plate. And one of the things we do different is we attach unistrut on each side of the pier, and then you can mount the, cradles for your power bricks. I've got the Nook mounted on the side. The power switch is mounted on the side of the pier, so it keeps all that stuff up off the floor. We control the roof. We have, like I mentioned, reliable power. We have full duplex gigabit fiber optic internet, and the fiber runs all the way to the observatory.
That's awesome.
And then at the observatory office, that splits through a switch, and we run an Ethernet cable to each pier. So each pier has their own dedicated foundation, their own dedicated 20 amp circuit, and their own Ethernet jack. So they don't have to monkey around with Wi-Fi. And
Nice.
It takes, because we're out in the middle of nowhere with high-speed internet, apparently the phone company needed to replace their aging and deteriorating old copper lines. And they found out a few years ago that it was going to be cheaper to replace it with fiber optic than to replace it with copper. So that's how we wound up in the middle of nowhere with fiber optic internet.
Wow.
But it's not unusual to see speeds in the range of 900 megabits.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So
I believe you told us that story the first time that you came on.
Okay, I'm sorry for.
No. I'm not saying that you're over. Because there's a lot of people that are watching us now that didn't watch us back then. So I mean, feel free.
Yeah. I would definitely go with the glass of fiber optic, getting that fiber optic cable going.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
Go ahead, Craig.
That's better internet out there than I have at home.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying Dylan was like, I'll back Craig up 100% on the clear skies. Sometimes I don't want to image due to the fact I'm burned out collecting data on clear nights, and sky quality is just amazing. Do the math and take into account how many clear nights we have in your area and the amount of hours you get. $800 is one hell of a deal.
Yeah.
And then I told him,
thank you.
And then I told him, I spent $800 in whiskey because of the frustration I get from setting up and getting clouds as soon as I'm done setting up.
Well, and one way to think about it is, are you better off spending money for equipment that you can't use, or spending money for someplace to use the equipment that you have?
Yeah, exactly.
And
trust me, I understand $800 is something, but hey, Craig, with the all amount of money that you're shelling out, that's nothing.
Yeah. Craig, this is something else you need to put into that presentation, is the fact that, you got Vegas, which is so far away. So if you want to party, you can party in Vegas. But more importantly, you got Zion. You've got Bryce. You've got all the national parks just within a stone's throw from where you're at. I mean, you literally can make this a little family vacation and go out there, set everything up, and just enjoy the sights and sounds of southern Utah.
And that is the perfect selling point for my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually we have a small RV pad. So if somebody is setting up their telescope and has an RV, they're welcome to park there for a couple nights while they set up their telescope. There's also a little, and I stress the word little, motel about 15 minutes away that I didn't even realize it was there until about a month ago. But it's available, and it looks like it's pretty decent. But like you say, you can fly into Vegas, and it's a 2-hour drive to St. George, another hour to the observatory. You've got Zion, Capitol Reef, Bryce Canyon, Bryan Head, if you like to ski. That will be open for skiing probably until sometime in June. Cedar Breaks during the summer is open. The north rim of the Grand Canyon. So there's, I don't know how many state and national parks there are just within a day's trip.
Yeah. One thing that I was thinking about, me being the IT, a bit of being the IT guy, just like Dan here, you were mentioning your Google remote desktop at your remote site. Sometimes, you get knocked off of Google. What do you usually have to do to get
I had that happen. I had that happen, I think, once in the last year and a half, something like that.
Okay, that's not
So
bad.
so it's not common, but it can happen. That's the only glitch I've had with Google. And basically, my daughter goes and gets the keyboard and monitor and hooks up to the computer and logs me back in.
Gotcha. Yeah.
The
if that ever happens to you again, you can also, if you ever consider using,
Can use
there are
TeamViewer.
like Tight V and C. You know,
Yep.
you can use Tight V and C viewer, and that'll get you right back in there as well. And it's you set up a couple of security pieces, and you're good to go. Just FYI.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's
Okay.
free.
Yeah,
So the price is right.
I literally used just the win. You know,
What
I
about
don't
TeamViewer?
use VNC, but TeamViewer is okay, except that the resolution. It's just like sometimes it's slow as hell, and it like pixelates, and it gets kind of annoying to me.
Yeah.
The RDP, any sort of RDP like VNC, or even if you take the right precautions, let me just put that out there. Microsoft Remote Desktop would be okay. You know, anything that gets you in based on your global IP, you're gonna get a lot better of a like a screen watch, because you know it's a lot quicker that way when you're going right to the IP.
Yes, yeah, and like I say, if Natus avoids, you know, sure, your daughter is right there, so that's perfectly fine. You know, bring the keyboard and mouse or what have you. But if that's not, you know, just happens to be a time where she may not be there just for that one day or whatever, yeah, VNC, you don't need it. You just sign right in, you know, with your account, and you just and boom, you're in and out. So, just wanted to share that little.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah, although
Yeah.
Chrome Remote Desktop is in my opinion, I've used that, I've used TeamViewer, I've used AnyDesks, and I've used Parallels. Chrome Remote Desktop and AnyDesk seem to be, if you're staying in that area, probably work the best as far as speed is concerned, on how it looks. You know, not about connectivity, on how it looks and how fast you get that upload download to your screen. You know, and Pete, if you're still using TeamViewer, I'd tell you to switch over to something real quick. We'll have to talk about that and get you on the right track.
Yeah, I've used it. Of course, I use it a lot here from home, where I have you know, fiber optic internet here as well. But I've also used it on my phone as we're driving down the road with you know, cellular data. And generally, if I have a data connection on my phone, I don't have a problem.
Right.
That one thing I will mention, one caveat, one of our guidelines is that after astronomical dark, nobody goes into the observatory.
Okay.
Because typically it's going to be dark in there. There's going to be telescopes moving around. There's, you know, so you really need some sort of light to find your way around. And, you know, basically we don't want to go in to fix one person's problem and cause 10 other people a problem.
Yeah.
So the exception to that is if there's an issue that's affecting everybody, that if a flat panel got left on, for instance, then or something like that, then we would go in and take care of that.
Actually, somebody had a question regarding what the elevation. What elevation are you at, and how do you protect the equipment from the weather?
It's 5,100 feet. So it's not super high, but it's up high enough that we get winter weather. There's snow on the ground now. Humidity is probably the biggest challenge. So I do use dew straps up there.
Okay.
So you'll use dew heaters, and you pretty much need those. It's not unusual to look at the telescope in the morning and everything's covered with frost.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that elevation for sure.
Yeah. It's essentially the same air that we have down here at 3,000 feet, but it goes up a couple thousand feet and has the same water vapor, but it gets colder, so it condenses.
You're still showing your
Your answer to questions.
PowerPoint. So if you want to go ahead and close that, so we can
see your face.
See your face there. Yeah.
Okay. I do
Unless
have.
You want to move on to the other.
Unless there's something else that you wanted to share. Yeah.
Well, I've got. You want to see some of the pictures?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Building.
Oh, let me make you big again. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. You're good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I don't think I mentioned, we really have two main business models. Obviously the peer rental for remote operation, and then the other is imaging by the hour. We have two systems out there that if you have a particular target that you need a longer focal length for, or if you're wanting to explore monochrome narrowband imaging, you can rent imaging by the hour, and that's all done over the internet. And as always, customers can come from anywhere all over the world.
And what's that hourly rate? Based off of those telescopes? What is usually those?
It's more of a hands-on. We meet over Zoom and talk about the target and the sequence, and how much time you want with each filter and how much time in total. It's $70 for the first hour, $50 for the second hour, and $40 for the third hour.
Okay.
So most rentals wind up being $150 to $200, something like that, for the target. And calibration frames are all included at no charge, and you're really only paying for the imaging time. So if you want 6 10-minute subs, that's 1 hour. And if I have to actually shoot 10 in order to get 6 good ones, that's my problem, not yours.
Mike G was asking, do the scopes and equipment get cleaned on a regular basis?
I'll say yes. As far as dusting, the optics generally don't need a lot of cleaning. The plane wave is probably going to want to be cleaned sometime in the next few months. I occasionally wipe off the lens on the Takahashi, but other than that, and if I get too far out of sorts with my flat frames, I'll go clean the sensor on the camera.
And Dylan just asked if in capitals, if I bring a scope up there, Craig, would I be welcome to come and clean and do maintenance? I only live about 40 minutes away.
Yep.
There you go.
Not a problem.
There's the answer, Dylan.
Very nice.
Yeah. And if anybody, and feel free to contact me through the website or Facebook or however.
Okay.
So I talked about some of the details that we offer. The observatory itself, if you look at this dark sky map, here's Las Vegas kind of blasting light into the night sky. We're up here, I think, about 120 miles as the crow flies, about 180 miles to drive from Las Vegas.
Okay.
And we searched all over California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, trying to find that magical unicorn of a site that had all of the requirements that we were looking for. Like I mentioned before, the site did need a little bit of work. It had an old single-wide mobile home that was extremely dilapidated. So that got taken down and put into like 3 of the big roll-off dumpsters to carry that away. And this is my son, who's the equipment operator. He's actually the foreman on the underground crew for a local electrical contractor. And one of the benefits of that is we're occasionally able to borrow equipment. And of course, he brings his know-how with him. And that's his son helping him run that little mini excavator. And flattened it out. And we decided early on that we should build a prototype of the big observatory, which led us to build this little 10 by 12 foot Quonset hut design. It just has a single pier, but for the most part, we built everything the same way we were planning to build the full-size observatory, with the difference that it sits on, I think, 8 4x4 posts that are set 3 feet in the ground in concrete, where the main observatory is actually on concrete foundation. The building rides on I-beams, which we use as the rails. So here's one of the construction images. You can see this is the pier poking up out of the ground. Below this, there's a block of about 2 yards of concrete. And then this 24-inch riser comes up. And terminology, because we put piers on top of these things, we've taken to calling these risers. So we have the foundation and then a riser, and then we'll put a pier on top of it. So if you hear me talk about riser, it's just so that we don't get confused on what kind of pier we're talking about. And then this is the rail that everything rides on. So construction process, you put in the foundation and the riser, and then you build a building around it. And with one, that's reasonably easy to do, other than the rails go in next, and those had to be level and parallel and square to one another. So that's a little more difficult than you might realize at first. And then it's a matter of getting these the pieces of the Quonset hut, individual arches, and you would basically assemble those on the ground. And you can see here, there's a C channel sitting on rollers that's attached to the I-beam, and that's what the building sits on. It actually sits down kind of in that C channel. So you just pick up the arches and start putting them up one after the other, and you just keep going.
Wow.
And pretty soon you've got a complete building. I don't know if this will play or not. This is putting in the floor after we put the building up, then we had to put in the floor.
Wow.
And then after we put the floor in, we had to build there's 4-foot high walls that go around inside the building. So even when it's open, it's closed. There was a pause there apparently for a lunch break. It's my wife and I, and then our son joined us, and hate to say it, but things went faster after he joined us.
All of a sudden you got taller.
You got to put this to music.
It's got to be the Benny Hill music, though.
Absolutely.
And then we framed up the back wall and put some sheet metal to close the back. And you can see in this picture, this little gray box over here on the left, that's the opener. And that basically pulls a chain that's attached to the building back and forth. And that's what opens and closes the building. And when you get done, that's what it looks like.
Wow.
So we've been operating that since September probably of last year. So going on a year and a half. And when you push the button, it does its thing. Here you can see I've got the plane wave is installed in there. We tried different ways to seal this joint between this flange wall and the open end. And what we finally found is brushes like you would use on a dock door, kind of an industrial brush. Those work real well, and they are flexible. And they just kind of fill the gaps in that corrugated steel.
Nice.
The opener's actually mounted on the side, and I say it's basically just has a chain sprocket that pulls that chain back and forth. So I think this was as far as I got last time I was here, and this was the kind of the artist's design for the building. So that's what we set out to build. We'll see how we did. This is an overhead view, and the sliced pineapples on a grill, that's actually the clearance circles for the different telescope risers and piers. So some are on 6-foot centers, some are on 8-foot centers. And the building actually opens about 10 feet beyond fully open. Most of the last year really has gone into infrastructure, building roads, burying water, power, internet, basically just infrastructure so that we could build an observatory. We've got the caretaker's house and the detached garage out here, kind of in the middle of the property. And this is a shop building where we can work on equipment. And then the observatory is right here, and we have space to expand. And altogether, this is about 120 acres. So we had our official groundbreaking April 30th. And this is my son down in one of the foundation holes. That's basically, that got filled with concrete, and then the riser goes in that will end up coming up through the floor. Interesting challenge. We have all these risers to put in and foundations, but they have to be arranged a certain way so that when you build a building around it, it all fits together. And because the risers are 24 inches across and joists are typically spaced 16 inches, we know we're going to have to split one joist for each of those risers. What we didn't want to have happen was have two joists that would have to be split, because then you get into even more structural construction, and you have to sister more of the joists, and it just becomes more complicated. So my grandson spent some time on AutoCAD and came up with a layout such that every pier would fall neatly in a joist space, so we would only have to split one joist for each pier. And we basically used that then as our Bible. We designed a building around that. When it came time for construction, the first thing we did was put 2 pins in the ground 50 feet apart along the north side of what would be the building. And from the CAD drawings, we had triangulating dimensions from each one of those pin locations to the center of each pier and to the corners of the foundation walls and so forth. So over a period of, through the construction until we had the foundation in, we kept those pins in place and would pull measurements to locate things from those 2 pins just by triangulating. And it actually worked.
Wow. That's a lot of work, man. You put so much into this. This is amazing.
The basic process is we have a cement truck come out, and he could fill about 6 of the holes. And we had 18 to fill. We dug these holes about 3 feet deep, as small as we could with the excavator. And then cement truck would come out and fill the hole. And then the next time he would come out, he would, as the concrete was curing, we would push the sonotube down into the concrete, put the rebar in. And then the next time the concrete truck comes out, he could fill some of the sonotubes.
Wow.
And we got all done. So here's all of those risers. And again, each one's sitting on a block of concrete independent from the others. And after that was all done, then we had to excavate out for the stem wall, which is the concrete foundation that the building's going to sit on. So this all had to be excavated out and compacted. They call it over-Xing or over-excavating out here. It had to be compacted to a certain level, and engineering company had to come out and test the compaction to make sure it was properly compacted before we could put the foundation in. So once that was done, then we had a contractor come in and frame up and pour the concrete. So this is the stem wall for the office area. And here we're starting to get the forms put in for the stem wall around the observatory. And you can see now there's a crawl space around the piers that are going to be underneath that floor. And the floor is basically the floor joists are basically going to be sitting at the top of the form. It's actually about 6 inches down, but pretty much the top of the form. So the stem wall is 42 inches high. And then once it's poured and backfilled, that's what it looked like. And at this point, we're ready to start framing. And we did have a framing crew come in and frame all of the floors. What we're doing here is we're running all the wires for Ethernet and power from the office through the dividing stem wall and out to each one of the risers, which eventually that's going to be connected to the outlets and the Ethernet jacks out there. So we spent a lot of time crawling back and forth pulling wires. But this is my son-in-law, who's also the welder fabricator. He's attaching the I-beam. It's a 5-inch tall I-beam that's welded to weld plates that are set in the concrete, and then there's a angle iron set on edge to form a V that the rollers actually roll on. So that's the track that the building's going to roll on. So here we are putting the C channel on the rail in order to start building the building. Now there's a better view showing the C channel. You can see how it sits on the rail and the inverted angle iron. The rollers, these are I think 6-inch steel rollers that it rolls on. And then there's also brackets, which again my son-in-law built, going to upside down hoist trolleys. And the hoist trolleys is what capture all that onto the I-beam so that it doesn't blow off. So we basically built this cradle that we could move around with our skid steer. And we would start building we'd put these first 3 panels together on the ground, and then we would set them up in the cradle. And then raise that up and attach this big curved piece, which is the next piece that goes into the arch. And then the last thing we would do is raise this up with the skid steer and set it in position and just start putting in, I don't know how many thousand bolts, hold this thing all together. And you have to do all of this with the bolts just kind of finger tight so that you can still wiggle stuff into position. And then once it's all up, then you go through with your impact and actually tighten all those thousands of bolts. That whole building came on one pallet, by the way.
Wow.
So here we are putting up the building, and we just kept sliding. We assembled it at the end of the observatory and just kept sliding it forward so we could work right here at the end. And we got to where we were putting up an arch in less than half an hour per arch, probably close to 20 minutes. And again, our son was able to borrow a bucket truck from work that made it real convenient between the scaffold and the bucket truck and this cradle for the skid steer. Things went pretty fast.
Craig, you're getting a lot of questions regarding the temperatures out there.
Cold in the winter, hot in the summer.
Yeah, they're wondering about summer imaging. As far as is it feasible because of the temperatures out there?
Oh yeah, yeah. I keep my camera set at 10 below. It takes it about an hour to get down to temperature during the summer.
Ooh.
And so I started up an hour before astronomical dark, and then by the time it's dark, it's cold and ready to go. During the summer, I've noticed that if you have to stop for some reason, if I need to disconnect and reconnect the camera for some reason, the camera will gain, real quickly, it'll gain back 10 or 15 degrees and then take another 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get back down to temperature.
Okay.
So once I get it cooled, I try to avoid doing anything to warm it up. During the winter, we will get down in the teens pretty easily. We're probably pretty close to that tonight. So besides dew heaters, you do have to have your camera cold enough that you can cool it. I was running the camera at 0 Celsius, and then first time we got below freezing weather, I had trouble because the camera was already colder than 0. So that's why I moved to 10 below. And then I've just used that year round now.
Wow. Okay.
So this is just a picture from the bucket truck. Here you can see the foundations that this rail actually extends all the way out here, but we didn't want to box ourselves in because we were still working back here. So we didn't put the rest of the rail on until we needed it. And here you can see the pieces that are staged, ready to go together. That's the opener. And I think that will handle 5,500 pounds.
Wow.
Which we're pretty close to its limit. But it's a torquey little thing. Here's my son-in-law and I putting the steel on the back wall. That's all framed up with 2x4s and 2x6s, and then the steel siding to close that in. My son and son-in-law doing the wiring in the office area. So here's the breaker panel, and then all the Ethernet stuff comes in this corner of the office. We went through, I don't know how many tubes of caulk. So my daughter did she spent a lot of time caulking, but for the most part, all the surfaces are OSB, oriented strand board, because it's not weatherproof, but it's pretty weather durable, especially when it's painted. So basically all of our surfaces, including the floors, are OSB with the joints caulked and painted. So we went through a lot of caulk. This is kind of an aerial view. Here's the observatory. This is looking west. So here's the observatory. This is the road that we built that goes across this wash and then out to the caretaker's house where my daughter and son-in-law live. And then over here is the shop building. So I said the house here is about the middle of our property. And this bare spot here is the septic system. And our hope is by next year, we'll have another observatory building sitting right here. And the buildings actually sit pretty much straight east-west, or at least as straight as we could get them. And that's what it looks like when done. So it looks a lot like the artist's impression. There's the generator.
Cool.
I think that's all the pictures I have.
Well,
So
that's
amazing. Craig, you have some beautiful images. Would you mind going through some of them and scroll so that the folks can see your shots?
Yeah, I think they're here. No, they're not there. Let's see where they are. So I'm just going to go to the end of this presentation and work backwards. So some things may feel out of order, and that's because I'm going backwards. So that was my ending slide. M81, M82 with some IFN. There was a period of time where I just kind of routinely had my the Takahashi with the monochrome sensor, a monochrome camera at the time, just go to this area every night and shoot some subs while I was waiting for dawn. So I wound up with, I don't know, 70 or 80, something like that, subs at 10 minutes each. Moon, obviously, composite. What was this? Tadpoles and Flaming Star. I think it's interesting that the Flaming Star is 1,500 light years away, and the Tadpoles is 15,000. They're not at all side by side.
No, just that perspective. It's they look so close, but no, they're so far away.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably don't even know each other.
Exactly.
Christmas tree cluster. Little spaghetti.
That's a picture that won the picture of the week, actually.
Yep. Sirius 147.
Oh, that was that's it without the nebula, just the stars.
Mhm.
So the idea there is kind of thinking about what's hiding in the stars. Little soul. Jellyfish. This
like
is
that.
one of my explorations of, I like to play with odd color palettes. This is actually, I think, OHS.
See, Dan, Craig likes green too.
Finally, somebody.
Hey, I embrace the
I like
green.
Hey, you know what? You know what? So Craig, there's like an ongoing thing on the Patreon group that I do every once in a while. I change the words and lyrics to certain songs, and I do certain things. I've only put 2 out so far, but the third one's coming. It's been such a long road to get here. And so now it turns out that I'm going to be doing "It's Not Easy Being Green" by Kermit the Frog. So that's going to be the next one.
Yeah, see, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with green. That it's what ties red and blue together.
Exactly.
It really looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Little crescent nebula. Comet.
You know, Craig, I think we're going to have you on again, and we're going to talk about your workflow, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would love to have you on and just kind of have you go through what your workflow is, because your images are absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you. But my background is photography. I've been doing digital image processing since the mid 1990s. So Photoshop is just kind of the happy place for me. Generally, my goal with, whether it was Deep Sky Stacker first and then PixInsight, is to get something ready and suitable for Photoshop.
Yep.
And then I do the color mapping and editing in Photoshop.
I mean, Photoshop is such a real powerful program that you can literally do almost 60% of everything in it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have even stacked, aligned and stacked images in Photoshop.
that's something I would definitely like to get better at, because that's something that I don't. You know what? I when I first started, there was nothing but Photoshop, and I was okay at it for a while, and then other projects and other software came out. I mean, Pete and I talk about this all the time about the going from programs like Images Plus back in the early to mid 90s, and then going into something like Nebulosity or something, and just the evolution of the software, all the way going up through that, going into PixInsight. And I guess I kind of lost my way, and I never. What a lot of people do these days, and I know that a lot of people still do it, is they integrate, they kind of like mix and mash between PixInsight, APP, and Photoshop, and using tools from everything. Because you know what? And I know this from being a Photoshop user, that some of the tools in Photoshop you just can't find anywhere else. And or you can find them, but they're not as it's kind of like using, Photoshop is like the scalpel as opposed to some other tools out there, which are a butcher knife. And, it's kind of like that. And at least that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. The thing I think I like about Photoshop is that for me, the editing is visual rather than numeric. And, not that numbers scare me. I'm an engineer by training, but I like being able to work what I feel is more visually in Photoshop, with adjusting the colors and how I'm blending the different channels together, which I do it a different way than most people, versus trying to use something like pixel math and you're concocting an equation and then you try it out and see what you need to change. So
it's interesting. As you said, being able to streamline your workflow, because you're right, you can just obsess over post-processing. And, you can spend hours and hours and hours. And, once again, now that gets to be OCD. I was talking to Christian today and I said, Christian, what is your workflow? And he says, I keep my workflow as simple as possible. He says, if it takes me more than 45 minutes to an hour, I need it real simple. And I know you've probably talked to him as well, Craig, but I mean, I'm looking at that image right there. What I like about this image is look at the Orion Nebula. We talked about green, but look at the contrast of the green with the blue, complementary colors, and then the purple, and the fact that it's starless. It really is a phenomenal artistic image. It's just, you are now the artist, and you've just decided to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just develop this palette the way I see fit, regardless of if it looks what it should be or just what I like what I prefer. But it is amazing. So really, as I said, I would love to have you back on to detail your workflow.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And you mentioned Christian. I assume you're talking about Christian Sase. That we're planning to do a kind of a masterclass workflow here in Southwest Utah next year.
Nice.
So there'll be more details about it. I know he has talked about it on the iTelescope channel. So I don't think I'm talking out of turn, but something for people to look forward to. And that will be focused on night sky photography.
Cool.
That would be awesome.
So there's probably a little bit more typical look at Orion, RGB plus HA. It's probably when I got a hydrogen alpha filter, I figured I'd better put it in everything. Panorama with M78 in the horse head. The quick triptych.
I love that picture.
An almost starless witch head.
You only need two.
And this is another, there's a lot of hydrogen in the background. So, I made a number of what I guess you would call artistic decisions here. I chose to really bring out the hydrogen background. I obviously knocked out the stars other than the one that you need to, in the film world, they would call that motivated light, because the star over here is motivating the light that's on the witch head. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to bring out a lot of the other nebula details around it. I kept it a very minimal composition.
You know what this looks like, Craig? It looks like, if you with a DSLR, I would say it had a real fast aperture setting, like an f2.8, because you can see the background is blurred, but you can see the sharpness and the detail of the witch head. It really brings your eye into it, because you can see that difference between the sharpness and the detail against that blurred background.
Yeah, and that is one of the, I will blur backgrounds in areas where there's no real crisp detail, but you're getting a lot of noise and artifacts. Just blur it.
Yeah.
Little triptych. I guess I'm going the wrong direction here. California Nebula. Not even sure what color palette you would call that necessarily.
I was going to ask that.
So I guess those are the images that I had in the presentation.
No, but those are great.
Yeah, man.
See if there's any questions.
I'll stop sharing for now.
No questions.
No, we were just talking about in the chat about, Dylan has been saying you got to come back on and talk about your workflow.
Absolutely.
Talking about a collaboration video between, AstroWorld and Dylan, or AZ Astro, or or AZ Forerunner. We're just chatting in the chat, but everybody loves your images. They say great images.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't spend a lot of time on an image, although I find I tend to process the same image multiple times. And ironically, they'll come out different each time. I guess I'm just not consistent. But like tonight, I'm shooting the second night of the Lion Nebula. I got about 6 hours on it last night. I processed that this morning all the way to a finished image. And I'll start over tomorrow and process it again. And probably by 9 o'clock or so, it'll be done.
Wow. Yeah, sharpless, the sharpless targets are a lot of fun with this because there's so much, these H2 regions are just a lot of fun. A lot of great targets.
Yeah, and the Lion has a good, strong signal in all three. So that gives you a lot of things to play with, a lot of different directions to go.
Absolutely.
I got to throw a shout out to Chuck Ayub is in the chat. So Chuck, how you doing, buddy? Said hi. He said hi, Declination Dan. So I gotta he remembers me back in the day when I was Declination Dan. but thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. He said I did great with well, Eric was there too. A lot of people had a lot to do with that, and 14 guests, 9.5 hours. It was incredible. So
and just wait till next year.
And maybe 2 days next year. I don't know. We may just not do it all in one day. I don't know. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we'll do 4 hours Saturday, 4 hours the Saturday after, because that was just too long.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's an undertaking, man, for sure.
You had a question about your IFN shots.
Okay.
Was there any filter involved, including glass of sensor or just the UV IR?
I think on that one, I was just shooting. I probably had just an IR filter in the filter wheel.
That was it. That was just a luminance with the IR. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Because that is the amount of IFN you got in that shot is just. Now how much time did you put into that?
In terms of processing or in terms of capture?
Just capture. Yeah.
Capture, I think it was 70 frames or 90 frames or something. It was a lot of data. It was much more than I normally would go after. Usually after 2, maybe 3 nights, I'm tired of a target and ready to move on.
Yep. So what was the duration? 600 seconds, 900 seconds?
It was either 300 or 600. I'd have to look back to know for sure.
So let's just say if it's 10 minutes and 90 subs, it's 900 minutes. So
that's a lot of time.
Yeah. So is that 15
that's
hours?
Something else I'm not very good at is keeping track of those details. I guess they're just not important to me.
No, I hear
and
you.
then I wind up after the fact, and somebody says, "Well, how much time is on that?" I don't know.
17 minutes.
Who cares?
Well, and I say, I really just kind of forgot about it because the telescope was just finishing up every night, getting a few more subs there, and I just kind of forgot about it over a month or so.
Yeah,
Gosh,
I can imagine doing IFN just on Polaris. If your scope's just facing Polaris, just as in general, like you're home, and you just start doing, while things are going, or you're waiting for a target, you just start taking 10-minute shots with Polaris until your target's ready to until that your project's ready to start. And who knows how many you could end up with if you just start out with Polaris, and you end up with a bunch of IFN, data and dust as well. So it'd be pretty incredible if you can, for something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Let me, I'll throw this back up real quick to answer so I don't see the screen. There we go. Now, there we go. So
Wow.
looking at my, this was 91 600-second subs.
Okay, so it's just over 15 hours.
It really, I've never finished this project to my satisfaction. I've got good images of the galaxies and good images of the IFN, good images of the stars, but trying to find that magic balance that that highlights the dust, but it doesn't overwhelm the galaxies. That you kind of have to choose what do you want to be the subject of the image, the IFN or the galaxies. And I've just never found a combination that I was happy with.
Wow, that's awesome.
You know what would be kind of cool here, Craig? In Photoshop, if you could overlay another celestial target on top of the IFN and just kind of blend it in, that would be so cool.
So what do you want to blend in with it?
I was just toying with the idea. I was thinking maybe if you were looking at like a black and white image of, say, the jellyfish or Simius 147, a black and white image of Simius would kind of be cool just with that background. Once again, we know that it's not, we're just having, fun here doing it, but it would look kind of cool.
Well, let's see. So there's Photoshop. So here's.
Hey, you know what? This brings up another good question. When we talk about workflow, Craig, maybe we can have you come on and actually go through a couple of sessions in Photoshop.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah. What's the membership think? I mean, would that be something they'd like?
Let's see.
Chuck just donated $10 to
Thanks, Chuck. Really
AstroWorld.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Chuck. You didn't have to do that. Thank you so much, though. It'll go right to the next giveaway eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah. So appreciate the support, man. Really.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
Yeah, but but no, you got some yes, sir. Yes, Dylan. Yeah, we've got some positive feedback here so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know what this would look like. There's the spaghetti. There's the dust. I can just tap V for the move tool and grab this image and pull it up on top of the other one, drag it down into the image, hold the shift key so everything stays aligned, and let go of the mouse. And so now we've just laid the IFN on top of the spaghetti nebula, and the two layers started out the same size, so everything came in just kind of lined up. And if I just blend these two together, and probably need to tone it down some.
Yep.
There's one way of doing it.
As I said, this is the interesting thing about Photoshop is that as the artist now, you can become so creative in doing so much. But definitely, Craig, I think that we're going to have you back on to actually do a little schooling on Photoshop techniques.
Okay. Actually, if we want to really play fast and loose with reality, we can grab this image of M82. It's got some dust in it, but we can do the same trick. Grab our dust, pull it over here, blend it in.
Yeah,
so now we get double the dust.
That looks cool, doesn't it?
That does look cool.
Well, I tell you what, man, Craig, we're going to get you on, Dan. Sign them, Craig. We're going to get you on, buddy. Let's do Photoshop techniques.
basis with astro images. And some of the tools are just, the same ones you would commonly use in any photo editing. Some of the techniques are probably adopted from what would be considered high-end portraiture or glamour retouching. And some are probably unique to astro imaging.
That is cool.
That is really cool.
I know, and like no one can tell you, no one can tell you different. Be like, that's not the way it is. How do you know? No. Tell them you took 120 hours on it. Let them do the same thing and test it out.
And actually, if we increase the scale a little bit, it probably looks even better.
Yep.
That is incredible.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
so
it's amazing what you can do with the different data sets. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And some people will probably say that that's cheating, but for it to be cheating, that would imply there has to be rules.
Exactly. And what we talk about all the time on the show is, you know what? You're the artist. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's not what Craig says. It's not what Pete, Eric, or myself, or anybody else in the channel says. You're the artist. You make it up. And that's what it is. And again, you like it. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and I love the diversity in the hobby because I've got one good friend who is a dedicated dyed-in-the-wool visual astronomer, and that's all he does. He's got a Takahashi with an angle, right angle adapter and good collection of eyepieces. I guess they're eyepieces. That's what he calls them anyway. He's got it mounted on a video tripod, so he can just point it anywhere in the sky and it's balanced. So when he lets go of it, it stays there. No tracking, easy, quick to set up, lightweight, and that's all he does is visual. We've got another friend who obsesses over guiding graphs, but I don't think he's processed an image in years. But he's he's out there imaging and working on his guiding graph. So I'm always amazed at how different people find different aspects of the hobby that attract them.
Yeah.
But the beauty is, at least they're out there doing it. That's the good thing. That's the saving grace.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and you don't have to do it somebody else's way.
Nope.
Yep.
So let me stop sharing again.
There you go.
There is. Well, those are some great images. Thank you.
Unbelievable.
No problem.
Unbelievable. And yeah, we definitely got to have you back and show us some either Photoshop or PixInsight or whatever you feel like showing us as part of your workflow is concerned. That'd be great to kind of.
Yeah, and we can walk through the whole workflow. And I do have some videos on YouTube that walk through the entire workflow, although the older the workflow, the less likely it is to look like my workflow today. So, for instance, Blur Exterminator is not in any of the online videos, but it will be soon.
Yeah. I tell you.
Everyone's looking on trying to do a poll on something. I'm not sure what they want to poll on, but a poll for a vote.
For another show with Craig, sharing his Photoshop tips, and stuff like that. I think is what I saw.
Apparently, on Craig coming to do a Photoshop tutorial for the third show. I think that's going to happen. I don't think we need a poll on that. I don't think I don't think we need to do that. But apparently, you're getting a lot of thumbs up on the mustache there.
Yeah.
So, apparently, a lot of
it's almost as old as I am.
Yeah, so that's going to be that's a good. It'll be 100-0. I have to hit the exercise bike. Hey, bye, Chuck. No problem. You're a better man than I.
Care.
I will not be doing any exercising. I'm just gonna have one of these. There you go. There you go. That's the last one of my group. That's it. But Awesome. So, what was I gonna say? So, it was honestly it was coming up to 11 o'clock, and thank you so much, Craig, for coming on. It's been a
Oh,
wonderful
no
night.
problem. My pleasure.
We do have to do one thing that we forgot to do at Astropalooza, and we never we gave away all these giveaways, but we didn't give the important one away. We didn't give away the club donation wheel. We were selling these shirts for, and all the proceeds go for Astropalooza, and all of the proceeds go to a registered astronomy club somewhere that wherever is registered. We have some in Canada, we have some in the U.S., we have some all over the place. So we have about 16 or 20 groups that we should do that spin, because I was yelled at on the Discord. Why didn't we do the spin? It was just so much was going on, and it just forgot. So sorry about that, everybody. So let's do that really quick. And then say goodnight to everybody, because we should really do that. Open, come on, open the club giveaway. There we go. And let's so this is our famous wheel, Craig. There we go. And here we go. So we got 21 groups up here, and just so everybody knows, the shirts are going to remain on sale until the end of the year. And so this pot will keep on growing. So buy the shirts. It's on the Astropalooza site, and buy the shirts. And all the proceeds go to one lucky group that we're going to spend for right now. So here we go. Who's going to get the donation for the shirt for Astropalooza? And it's going to be the Central Appalachian Astronomy Club. So Central Appalachian. So if anybody's out there for Central Appalachian, somewhere in January, middle of January, once we get all the sales compiled and everything, they will be getting a check from AstroWorld and the members of AstroWorld, saying, here you go, have some money on us. So there you go. The Lenovo wasn't drawn. So one of them was. We could draw another one. I have 5 of them. I have 4 left, so we could do one more of those 2. We could do that as well. We'll give away one more. So Central Appalachian. Let me just take a picture of that so I don't forget who it is. There we go. Boom. And close and open. We'll do another Lenovo, because I have all these computers. They're little computers, Craig. So what you know, there's little like mini computers. They're like this big. They're not 12 volt, so you got to plug them in. It's got like a half a terabyte solid state drive, 8 gig of RAM. It's like a Windows i5, i3. I don't remember exactly, but I've been giving them away because I have a bunch of them. So I'm just giving them away. So they're just sitting there. I mean, if somebody wants to use them, I put them up for $5 a chance. So $5 you get a new computer. So here you go. Here's another one. And Michael Gibbs won the last one. So if it's Mike again, we'll spin again. Give it to somebody else this time. And it looks like Josh Kovac wins a Lenovo computer. So there we go. So Josh, and I'll take a picture of that. Bam, they're beautiful. And then, so those are the 2 giveaways for tonight. We'll continue to give away some more Lenovo computers as we go. I still have about 2 or 3 more. And then we'll just send those away. But that being said, I think, no, I'm not doing the rest tonight. It's almost 11 o'clock. No, we're not going to spin another one. We'll save it. We'll save it for Christmas. But anyway, thank you so much, Craig. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you on again. After the holidays and all that, we'll get together and we'll hook up another day.
Sounds good.
I don't hate you, Dylan. I just don't want to spin again. Is it too late to enter? No, it's not. Send me your $5. So, but yeah, just anyway, Eric, little final thoughts.
No, again, Craig, thank you so much. Some great stuff. Always enjoy having you on. Looking forward to, the next opportunity to see you and sharing some of your Photoshop skills with the viewers and our audience. But again, thank you for spending your evening with us. Really appreciate it.
Sure. No problem. I enjoyed it. Look forward to the next time.
Craig, as always, sincere, appreciate it. I'm going to give you a call in the morning because I got to talk to you about something.
Okay.
But as I said, an absolute pleasure to be on. And hey, we had 34 people on tonight, which was pretty good. And Dan, for the time and effort that you put in for last Saturday for Astropalooza, kudos to you, my friend. I mean, it was a great show, and 164 people watching the show, and you being on there for the duration that you were.
Well,
That's
164 was only the peak concurrent. The more people watched it, but it was at the highest. It was 164 at one time.
I mean, that's impressive.
And don't forget my buddy at the bottom there. Don't forget Eric. Because I didn't do it alone. so Eric showed up at like 4 o'clock. And he was there for most of the day. He had to watch that game, and he had to watch it.
I had to watch the game. I had to get through that. So that was a rough game, but had to watch it.
Well, what happened, Eric? You watch the game, and then the next day they fire the coach.
No. Not only that, they fired the coach right after Army saying second.
Wow!
Basically, like within 5 minutes after that game, after Army saying second, the AD actually fired him.
Wow!
So, yeah,
That's brutal, man.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Unforgiving, these people. You lose in double overtime and you get fired.
Hey, Navy's that's one of the things. Navy's got to beat Army consistently.
If you lose your job.
That's it.
Oh, cutthroat. Anyway, awesome. Again, Craig, thank you so much for coming down and hanging out with us. I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us and showing us all about Utah Desert Remote and all the images in your workflow and everything. It's been eye-opening quite a bit. So thank you so much.
No problem. Appreciate the opportunity. And if anybody has any questions afterwards, they can always get in touch with me, I'm sure through you or through the website at utahdesertremote.com.
Absolutely. Awesome. Anyway, okay, good. Very good. Thank you so much. It's 11:02, and everybody have a good night. Friday night is an open night for our beginners Q&A, and we'll see everybody at Friday at 8 p.m. So for now, have a good night. Have a great next couple of days, and remember to keep imaging, keep educating, and clear skies, and we'll see you Friday night. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good one, everybody.